Yeah, nice to see participants from all over the world. That's pretty cool. Just quick note that you can post your questions throughout the presentation, and at the end of the presentation, we will have time to answer them all. Hopefully all, hopefully all. But so, anyways, be patient, and we'll get to your question. Okay, cool. Let's start. So our today's topic is related to SEO, and specifically SEO during website migration. And first of all, before we dive into agenda and then topic itself, let me introduce Scandiweb a bit and myself as well. My name is Lina, and I'm head of SEO in Scandiweb. And Scandiweb is an e-commerce agency that has been already for some while in the market, focused on development of Magento e-commerce stores, but working also with Shopify, WordPress, and some other quite custom solutions. We're also quite involved in Magento ecosystem, and also have developed our own Magento front-end theme based on PWA. So that's quickly about us. Yeah, about our SEO team. So in Scandiweb, we are 12 people working as SEO specialists, and we're actively helping our clients to successfully migrate from one platform to another, and actually also offering full SEO services for both our internal clients and also external ones, mainly eCommerce, and including everything starting from strategy, technical SEO, on page, off page. So, and today, yeah, one more thing that, yeah, we are working with different clients. Among them also, there are small family businesses, as well as quite well-known brands. And yeah, we'll be happy to share our experience today with you. What is our agenda? So we will start with simple and not so simple thing at the same time. It's first of all, what is considered as website migration, and also what is the role of SEO specialists during website migration. So what you should expect from them in the best case scenario, and maybe also not, like what you shouldn't expect from them. And then we will dive into steps of SEO support during the migration, from planning to post-go live monitoring. Right away, one disclaimer that overall, as we have managed quite a lot of migrations in the past few years, then obviously we have a lot of experience, templates, documents created, etc., and a lot of things we could potentially share. So I tried to cherry pick some of the top things and share specifically with you tonight. So what we will do, we will start with an intro, and first of all, let's discuss what is a migration. And actually, there can be very different migrations. It's actually quite wide term, and we would actually divide them in simple, average, and complex ones. So if you're speaking about simple, then it could be migration from HTTP to HTTPS. That's something we don't see anymore so often, luckily. but still can be simple upgrade from older version of the website to a newer one. So something that don't affect the website URL structure, design, etc. so much. Average, it's something we see quite often. There can be some URL and structure changes, probably some redesign. It can be related to Magento 1 to Magento 2 migration. It can be also migration to, for example, PWA front end. Previously, a couple of years ago, I would say that it's on the complex side, as PWA JavaScript heavy solution, and for SEO specialists is kind of not the favorite topic, but we are doing it so much lately that it becomes more like a daily routine. And if you are speaking about complex migrations, there could be a switch, a major switch of platform. For example, website might migrate from some good old WordPress to Shopify and completely change the structure, design layouts, so do some major things there. There can be maybe complex URL structure change for some international website. So something that affects whole infrastructure. Yeah, and if we are speaking about involvement of SEOs, I would say that there should be a SEO involved, SEO specialist, in-house agency, like what better suits you in any type of these migrations. And obviously, scope of the work depends a lot. In our today's conversation, we'll focus on more on average and more complex part of the things. So, and obviously, then it will be also applicable for more simpler migrations. Yeah, and about the role of SEO specialists during the migrations, from my personal perspective, it's very important to be proactive during website development to ensure that there is no need to panic after the launch. Because the thing is that often SEO is not the first priority we are thinking about during the website development. So SEO, it's kind of like, oh yeah, towards the end of the development project, we start to think, yeah, there was something about robots.txt, XML sitemap, etc., etc. Not always, but it happens. And then quite often it's already slightly too late. And so it's better to invest more before than face organic traffic decrease after the launch and try to save it. So we will see also some examples later on. And yeah, as we have worked in different models, by different models, I mean that when we are supporting migrations, there could be cases that we are working with client who, for example, has in-house SEO specialist, or maybe they have their own like SEO agency they have like some long relations with, or maybe they have none and nobody involved. But so we have seen different approaches from SEO agencies and SEO specialists. And just to share with you some good examples and some not so good examples. So from the not so good ones, we have seen, for example, that SEO agency in the very beginning of the project just sends very like generic requirements for the migration, so that there should be XML sitemap, and there should be robots.txt, same good old one, 301 mapping. So basically a couple of sentences, what they expect, and that's it. And you don't see them afterwards. Another option, what we also have seen that, you know, that there is some mystical SEO agency that client is working with. So you start on the project, you do everything, help them with SEO. And once the website is launched, suddenly appears a SEO agency in few weeks and does the audit of live website. So basically SEO appeared when party was already over. And that's definitely also too late, because if there would be a major bugs, or for example, our team wouldn't work on the project, then that would might result in not so good consequences for organic traffic. So I would say that's a no-no. And if you have SEO agency behaving in such way, that's more or less like yellow red flag from the migration perspective. What we see more often is that, and which is okay and good to have, that SEO agencies come up with requirements before the go live, run audit of the staging website, and that's extremely important to do audits before the launch, and also perform audit or monitoring after the go live. So that's more common approach, and that's kind of like minimum that there should be. What also can be done, and that's something we haven't seen so often, but it's really good case scenario when you're, if you are a SEO specialist or you're e-commerce business who is working with SEO, that SEO during migration projects enables kind of not normal mode, but kind of like do more than usual, has close cooperation with developers, close cooperation with you as a client, or like you as a SEO specialist communicate way more with the client on all related SEO aspects. Because if we speak about SEO, it kind of lays over all marketing aspects, including there might be some connection with, for example, the way how infrastructure is set up. It might have the impact on SEO. Content, obviously, designs, URL changes. So the sooner you onboard SEO specialists into project and the more they are involved, the better. And if you are speaking about direction of the work, so what you should expect from SEO specialists, or what we usually working on the projects think about. So there are so-called three whales of SEO: technical SEO, content and structure, or on-page and website authority, or off-page SEO. So first thing that need to take into consideration is to make sure that tech SEO best practices are in place. And if it's possible, then they can be also improved. And that's something we also will discuss a bit later. From content and structure perspective, it's very important to migrate valuable and unique content and SEO elements. It's also theoretically possible to introduce new content and optimize the existing one. If you are speaking about website authority, then it's very important to implement proper 301 mapping to transfer the value of backlinks to new URL structure in case there are any changes. And now let's move specifically to migration SEO plan. So dive into specific steps, what SEO specialists are doing during the migration. We usually divide this workflow in 6 steps, and one of the most important ones is actually the first one when it comes to strategy, planning, and development of requirements. Then there might be work on on-page SEO, and then not necessarily, but if it's there, it's also better to start as soon as possible. Then technical SEO, important part, and there are 2 parts: implementation of requirements that were developed initially, and pre-go live audit. 301 redirects mapping, that's something we'll also touch in details later on. Go live itself, so launch of the website, the exact date, and post go live monitoring, which actually goes a bit like further, 1 to 4 weeks after the project. And now let's go in depth into each step, and starting obviously with strategy and planning. So while if you are speaking about, for example, Magento 1 to Magento 2 migrations, or Magento to Shopify, WordPress to Shopify, and vice versa, there are some standard elements. And the longer you work, more migrations you manage, more familiar you get with things that are there, and it takes way easier and smaller amount of time to actually plan the migration. But still, each project is usually slightly different from each other. So it means that also each project will have a bit of personalized requirements. And what is important to start with, actually, when we are starting to think about migration, is to understand the scope of the project and goals. Because while migrations are similar, the website might have very different relations with SEO. And it's important to understand how important it is as a channel. Is it planned actually to maintain SEO as it is, or improve it? Because that's a different topic. We need to understand the changes in technology. Maybe there will be, for example, PIM introduced, or some, for example, blog cut suddenly, or something like that. What are the deadlines, stakeholders, and very important workflows? Especially, there might be different models that, for example, you have basically like clients, SEO specialists, and developers. And it's very important also to put SEO specialists together with developers to ensure that, for example, for requirements, there is done a proper QA, and also that SEO specialists are informed that when something is implemented on the website. For example, if SEO specialists request some custom canonical tags, they should quickly get the information that they are there. So it's kind of small things, but it's very important to establish those relationships at the beginning. So is there some, I don't know, tools like Jira used, or Asana maybe, where it will happen, this communication, emails, meetings, so all those things. From our side, what we usually do is to have a checklist, which is kind of in form of a questionnaire. And we have a list of questions we want to get to know from each, it can be project manager or client directly. So I would say there are approximately 20-30 questions, so that we understand the importance of SEO, goals of the project, and major changes that are planned. Then what is important to actually cross-check everything ourselves. So it's important to rely on information what we receive, but always better to cross-check. So usually what we do, we set up a data studio report just to cross-check share of organic traffic, because while maybe e-commerce business thinks that SEO is not so important, and then you go to Google Analytics and you might see that it's actually is 70% of makes 70% of the traffic in general, and maybe 50% of revenue. So at that point, it's kind of, so it is important, and you might think about the project a bit differently. What else we check? So we check also share of web images, video results, what are top search engines. Very important to understand share of branded versus non-branded traffic, because it's way easier to manage migration when website is more capitalizing on branded searches. For example, if you take apple.com, so most likely majority of traffic is coming to apple.com. So people know that they're searching for Apple as a brand. So, and Apple is ranking in the first position for many keywords related to its brand. And if eventually, so it should be very big bug to that would result in apple.com losing its positions for its branded keywords. At the same time, if the website gets more traffic from non-branded keywords, which would be, let's say, mobile phones, that's a non-branded keyword, no brand assigned to it. So then the competition is way bigger, and some small things that maybe are like bugs or something is not like thought of, like meta titles. So it might affect positions right away. So the website is more sensitive to things done during the migration. And yeah, depending on the project, we might check also some other things. But yeah, overall goal is to get to know the website based on data. Next important thing is to perform SEO gap analysis or understand what is the current setup of the website. At least from our side, usually what is the minimal goal we are aiming for is to ensure that we don't make things worse than they were. And if there were already some good practices implemented on the website, we need to make sure that they are migrated also to the new version of the website. I won't go into details here, as overall those SEO elements is more or less could be a separate course to cover them all. But overall, what we want to understand, so we are going just one by one and checking, is it present? Is it good? Should we migrate it? Maybe we should improve something. So we'll give you a sneak peek to our documentation, that it's actually a gap analysis of our own website, Scandiweb.com. So as you can see, so we are going topic by topic. For example, yeah, robots.txt. So we are what we are doing, we are checking how it is working on the current website, checking that it's already present in the new setup. And based on that, we might create requirements, some extra requirements for developers, maybe to do some custom stuff. Maybe we can ask some extra questions. Maybe something is not clear, or we see, okay, this element is not there, not needed also on new website, so no action needed. So in such way, we have very clear understanding on what should be on the new website, what is missing, and what should be the tasks for developers. One important thing, it's one kind of not problem, but something that SEO agencies often do when they are working with developers. They tend to provide very generic task descriptions. For example, implement XML sitemap, or implement canonicals, or something like that, from like not giving extra details. In reality, we can compare it to coming to builders and saying to them, oh, could you please build me a house? And probably what you will get as the result, without any extra explanation. So actually what you would get might be very different from what you have envisioned. So what is very important, if you are a SEO specialist, or maybe if you're a client who is communicating with the SEO agency and collecting requirements, is to make sure that they are as detailed as possible. So better more detailed than less detailed, because developers, they shouldn't be, and they are not SEO specialists, and they shouldn't like translate those requirements into something like specific tasks. So for example, this is not a task. On contrary, this we can consider a task. So it's like, it's about XML sitemap implementation and webflow, not on eCommerce, but the idea is more or less similar. So very detailed, what is the acceptance criteria, what to do. So for people working on the tasks, they won't spend time on trying to investigate what is needed from them. So that's very important to take into consideration. And yeah, a real life example why it's important to plan and spend time on SEO planning and overall plan your SEO work when you are migrating. So this is example of migrating to Vue.js storefront, Magento 2 without SEO scope. So who is not familiar with this type of screenshots, it's from Google Search Console, data about clicks from Google. So here happened migration and you see the drop. The sad part is that it's hard to recover after the migrations. It's way harder to actually recover after migrations, only by like if you do just fix the bugs which are there, it doesn't mean automatically that you will recover. Most likely you will need to include not include, but invest a lot of time, a lot of money into content, into backlinks, into technical SEO to get it to the previous level, because kind of momentum is gone. And it would be way better to think about all these things before the migration. So yeah, that's more or less about requirements. So really recommending to invest time into that. And now we are moving to the second step, on-page SEO. What are the possible directions that SEO specialists could do during the website migration in cooperation with client or independently? For example, it's possible to perform content audit to migrate only valuable content if you have like a lot of legacy things on the website. Possible to do main menu SEO optimization, so find more suitable keywords that would go into menu itself. Can work on meta titles, meta description, templates, maybe write them manually, optimize them, tweak them, and improve them. And it's also possible to overall improve content. At the same time, from our side, we are doing it time to time, depending on the client needs. But I would recommend be very cautious about on-page optimization, because if you start it right during development process, it might not come out so well because it requires a lot of investigation. So if you want to do, let's say, optimize same main menu, you would need to do most likely keywords research. So basically understand what is the keyword universe, check SERP intents. So basically what Google shows for those keywords, do competitor research, and then provide recommendations. So it's kind of would either prolong your work on the project, or you wouldn't get maybe the best outcomes. So that's something I would recommend start thinking about in advance if there is an SEO agency involved. So maybe like half a year in advance, maybe even a bit more. So just start to prepare for this. Or potentially that's something that can be done after the migration. So in slower pace, implement improvements later on. So just for you to consider that, yeah, cool, good opportunity, but need to really think if it makes sense. On the other hand, there are quite a lot of things that make sense to think about, and for sure should be thought about. And first thing is, are the top resources from organic traffic perspective being kept? For example, maybe there is idea to cut a language if it's international store, and we need to cross-check that it's actually safe to remove it, and maybe it's worth actually to keep it, and because like, yeah, you spend resources on maintaining it, but you might get quite a lot of extra revenue from it. Blog, maybe some CMS pages. We have seen cases when e-commerce stores are deleting some content because it's old, it's just somewhere there in the footer, some old pages, some experts provided some advice back then, and okay, let's cut them. But actually those were the pages that were attracting new people to the website. And then you suddenly start to see organic traffic go down. So it's always good to cross-check. And overall, I would recommend to have a list of, let's say, top 20, maybe top 100 pages that are ranking for non-branded keywords, and just make sure that you monitor them and cross-check if they are being actually migrated. Because when we are working with e-commerce stores, there might be thousands or tens thousands of pages, and something might be lost. But if it's a page that actually brings a lot of traffic, then it's a pity afterwards. What else we need to check? We need to check will all content be freely available? We also have, like, a bit random maybe, but we have had cases when there was a proposal from client, hey, let's make the content available after our users log in on the website. And you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And then you're cutting it also from search engines. So maybe worth reconsidering this. Then it's important to see how meta titles, descriptions, H1s are being generated on the current website. Maybe there are some extensions that are building automated templates. Maybe somebody spent hours, days, or even years writing them. So need to understand the logic, how the content is built on the current website, and see how it can be migrated. Maybe same templates should be implemented on the new website. Maybe migrate them one by one. So all those things should be cross-checked. Also, it sometimes happens that, for example, what is actually very popular, the way how to optimize product listing pages in e-commerce is to add block of SEO text under, basically in the bottom of product listing pages. And it might be there for years as well. And maybe you might think, okay, maybe it can be removed. But actually that's, again, can be main reason why the page was ranking well. So SEO specialists should check all those moments. So pages, content blocks, and kind of bigger things like blogs or maybe some languages, and see what actually was bringing traffic and ensure that it's migrated, or agree that actually you will see the traffic loss after the migration due to cutting, due to content cuts. One thing what we also do usually from our side is to check wireframes or designs and see if a SEO part is included there. So if there should be some text box, is it there? Is there footer, H1s? So all those elements, and it's way more efficient to catch some missing things on the wireframing phase, and not later on just before the go live, let's say, because again, you need to agree with designers, then developers would need to style it, etc., etc. So better, actually, that's perfect case when you can do it very early on. Okay, cool. Next step, technical SEO implementation. And what we see under this step, it can include some custom development. Maybe you have some, maybe you're working with some very custom platform, and canonical tags needs to be developed from scratch. It can also include configuration of extensions, configuration of admin panel to make sure that all SEO best practices are in place. Setup of tools like Google Search Console, for example. That's actually recommended also to do as soon as possible if client or your e-commerce store doesn't have it. The sooner you do it, the better, because then we will start to get relevant data before the migration, and it will be very easy to compare how website is performing before and after migration. Because the truth is that if you are looking at Google Analytics, we are usually saying that approximately 90% of Google Analytics setup are broken. So if you do some adjustments during the migration, actually data might be counted differently. So it's better to rely on Google Search Console. So if we are going back to implementation, what is also done, QA of requirements. So requirements were provided, developed, and passed to developers. Then it's very good for SEOs to QA them and make sure that, like, don't leave it only for developers to do the QA cross-check. And last but not least is to perform pre-go live audit. And that's something I will tell a bit more in upcoming slides. Yeah, so about the audit. There are different approaches. Quite a lot of SEOs are arriving shortly before go live, let's say maybe a couple of weeks, doing an audit of staging website, and like creating the list of maybe 20, maybe 100 issues, and saying to developers, okay, go fix this. It's fine, but it might also create a lot of stress for all the parties, actually, if it's close to go live. So what could recommend here is to perform audit in waves. So whenever staging website, new website is built, let's say that there is at least one product listing page, few products homepage. You can already understand approximately, at least, if it's working from a SEO perspective or it's broken in some way. Maybe check the same rendering of the page, if Google will be able to read it properly. You can check if H1s are in place, how is styling looking. You can check if there is this text box implemented, actually. So all those things can be checked early on, and later on you can do additional checks so that developers receive recommendations of fixes like throughout the project, and actually you don't have a pile of things to do before the go live. Because of course, it depends on the project. And if SEO is very important, then there might be cases when you move go live just to make sure that all SEO elements are properly implemented. But there might be also cases if you have very strong go live date, that part of the things that should be fixed just somehow appear in the to-do list after the go live. And for some things it makes sense, for some things it's kind of painful. So yeah, at least for us, it's seems like a more efficient solution. One important thing as well, if you are speaking about e-commerce platforms like Magento, Shopify, WooCommerce, by themselves, we cannot say that they are not SEO friendly, but they are not also SEO friendly, just like out of the box. So usually we recommend to look for extensions right away, because some smart people have already developed some good things, almost for all the platforms, more or less. And for example, for Magento, there's MageWorks, Shopify Smart SEO, WooCommerce, there's Yoast, like known plugin. So capitalize on those and avoid custom development where possible, because custom things, they often come with extra QAs, extra level of bugs, etc., etc. So capitalize on what is out there already. Next topic is about 301 redirects. And if we are speaking about, let's say, things that can stop go live, and from a SEO side, I would say 301 mapping is one of those. If 301 mapping is not in place, then it's a very strong point to actually like make sure that it's there in the first place, and then launch the new website. For those, just very quickly to explain what is 301 redirect, 301 mapping. So let's say we had URL example.com/Apple, and after the migration, instead of this one, we decided that green apple sounds way better. So our new URL category page, let's say, will be green apple. If we don't do 301 mapping, then actually those two URLs won't be connected. And people who had this URL in bookmarks, okay, that's maybe not so common case, but actually we might have it in paid advertising, in social media, in some blog articles, in Google, also very important. So if there won't be 301 redirect, people will land on 404 page instead of your new green apple. And also Google won't pass historic value of this page. So actually you will also lose the rankings. On contrary, when there is 301 redirect applied, then people will automatically be redirected to green apple, same as Google, and same also will happen with backlinks that were built for this URL. And there is big chance that all the rankings will be maintained. So that's extremely important. And what to note, that depending on the website, 301 mapping can be very, very time consuming. Therefore, it's very important to automate it whenever it's possible. So if you are doing 301 mapping, or your SEO specialists are doing it, or developers, always ask if it's somehow possible to automate it. Maybe it can be done somehow during regex on server level. If not, then go step by step to more and more manual way of working. And there are some things possible, options in between. For example, if you need to map 10,000 of product URLs, don't do it manually, one by one, searching like what was old URL and what is new one. Use schools, for example, to map them using formulas, maybe some unique IDs, etc. So there are many ways how to automate it. Also, I would say that one of the best friends of SEO specialists are Google spreadsheets, formulas. So if you are SEO specialist, it's very important to learn different formulas and see how you can do mapping using them. And if there is no other way, no formulas in Google can help you, then you might consider mapping, just like URL by URL. So yeah, that's time consuming. Sometimes it can be done by SEOs, sometimes it can be done by developers, sometimes it's being done in-house by clients, just because depending on the website, it might take also a few weeks or even more to do it. In the good case scenario, just maybe like a few, like day or even less. What is important? So what URLs do you map in 301 mapping? Usually what we do as a separate thing, also as part of, let's say, discovery phase of the project, more or less, but or like early in the project development, we try to identify which URLs actually should be mapped. And we go to the old website or the current website that is like still live, and collect all top landing pages from Google Analytics. Not only organic ones, but also referrals, social, maybe email marketing. So all URLs that actually are visited by people. Because why also this task is important, because it goes totally beyond SEO also and affects other channels as well. We perform website crawl. So crawler goes through the website, collects all the URLs that are there. We take top landing pages from Search Console. We can also do product export from backend database. Can also use shopping feeds to gather information about products that are out there. And also, it's good to separately get information about backlinks that pages are having, and put it all in one big document. So here you have an example that there are URLs, response codes from crawler, referring domains, do follow backlinks, clicks from Search Console, sessions, transactions, and then we set priority. There have been cases when you have like 10,000 of URLs, and maybe if it's some WordPress website, there might be quite a lot of not useful things, and some URLs that don't have traffic, return 404, so we don't need to map them. And so we just want to take like valuable URLs and make sure that there are redirects applied. If in this part you understand that some top landing page could be for paid traffic, could be for organic traffic, is actually not being migrated, it's also good actually point to raise the concern one more time, saying that, hey, maybe we still could have migrated instead of like redirecting it. Because if logic is following that if there is matching page in the new website, then we migrate to that one. If there is no matching page, then we migrate to something closest. Deleted product might be migrated to category page. So if there is opportunity maybe to migrate some good bestseller product and not deleted, obviously that could be also considered. Some more examples from real life migration without 301 mapping. That's also not a really good thing to do, because you could see how like traffic is going down. So migration without 301 mapping. Here it's a bit difficult to see, but again, 301 mapping wasn't implemented, traffic went almost to zero. Again, hard to recover. Here recovery actually was very successful, took a while, but better to avoid it. So we are moving closer to like culmination of the story, like go live support, or the on the day of the launch. From our side, we usually make sure that there is SEO specialist ready next to laptop and just like following the moves of developers. And whenever the website is live, so basically DNS is switched, there is right away a go live checklist that should be performed to ensure that the website is indexed, rendered by Google, the 301 mapping is still working, nothing has broken, regenerate XML sitemap, submitted to Google Search Console, update robots.txt file, etc. Why it's important? Because again, developers are not SEO specialists. And we have also seen cases when page after the migration, like suddenly traffic drops. And the reason is very simple, because nobody has switched it from no meta robots, no index, no follow to index follow. Stupid mistake, but you cannot really blame like developers for that. So it's always good for SEO specialists just to take a look, latest on the next day after the migration. Actually one note that probably we can also send you the link afterwards, but we have a separate blog post about this topic of go live support, where we actually go into details about each step that should be performed. And regarding post go live monitoring, one common thing is that, so like a few days after go live, everyone is like, so how is our organic traffic performing? Are we still good? At the same time, final conclusions we can do, I would say, really depends on the website, but normally 3-4 weeks after the go live. And post go live monitoring, like for 3 weeks is absolutely normal, can go into 4 weeks. What should be done from a monitoring perspective? Need to check that website is still being accessible by Google, and never hurts. Check overall how is organic traffic performance, what's going on with keywords, are there any 404 pages appearing that shouldn't be there, how is Google index being updated, so are new URLs replacing the old ones. Check what's going on. Maybe there are still small issues that were discovered during go live checks, how they are fixed. So all those things should be monitored a few weeks after. And yeah, important question. So what is the normal drop after go live? So how much traffic it's okay to lose? And answer usually, as it usually is, it depends. It really depends. And what is the tricky part here? That even if you do everything perfectly from technical SEO scenario, there might be cases that, for example, you cut some 20% of your product, so did some stock restructure, and actually those were bringing traffic. So in this case, obviously you might see decrease, and it might be permanent. Besides that, there are possible different scenarios. There actually might be short-term increase that will, and afterwards in a few weeks you might see a decrease. When it happens, when you have at the same time old and new URLs being at the same time in index, and temporarily it's like going really like up. And then when Google replaces old URLs with new ones, it slowly goes down. So there might be such cases. Then that's kind of common to have short-term decrease and then grows afterwards, especially if you continue to work on SEO, do improvements, do overall improvements on the website. And this is kind of okay. And yeah, it's fine to have like -10, -15%, so it shouldn't like cause a panic, but obviously it's something to monitor. This one is really nice. You just have like no evidence of go live, but obviously the best is if it goes up right after. That's also something we have seen, and that's very cool. And usually there have been a very good job done by from all the parties. So it means that the SEO was involved, client was involved in like focus on SEO development, and obviously SEO specialists also did their best. Then we could actually see a good improvement right after. And yes, that's also possible the case. So we saw quite a few examples of this situation when you don't see short-term recovery in short term, and you might need a lot of investments also afterwards. So to summarize, I would say, yeah, that there could be successful migrations when there's short-term decrease or even like very flat performance or positive performance. Because I would say that overall, to achieve even flat performance, that's a success, it's big success. If you manage to grow it, it's like, wow. And yeah, it was really good job done. Unsuccessful migration, so can go when it goes more than, I don't know, it can be -25%, and it needs some extra push to actually to recover. And yeah, there can be also severely unsuccessful migrations. Either SEO wasn't involved, or maybe just overall website is super buggy, because Google is also very sensitive to such things. So if you have a lot of server errors, slow website, something is not loading, not working, so it will affect SEO even if you have everything very well set up. Yes, and actually that's it from my side. So when you are working, one important thing, if you are working on the migration, I would really wish you to have this example or go up really quickly. And yeah, let's move to questions. Why would the traffic grow after a successful migration? If I understand the question correctly, when it could be like, is it even possible to make traffic growing? Yeah, it can happen if, for example, you added some cool content on the page, actually SEO optimized, and really thought about it. Maybe you did some optimization of the structure. Perhaps you're moving from some very old and shitty website on some like very slow WordPress to Shopify. So in this case scenarios, when there is a big difference between old and new one, you could actually see the growth. I hope I answered your question. Do developer have to modify their code after the migration? Good question. It really depends, because it's not so much maybe about SEO, but about overall website development. And well, there might happen some situations when something needs to be adjusted, maybe it didn't work as expected. In case of the ranking drop, I would say theoretically possible, but could be a rare case when it's really about code. Because if it's about code, just like, for example, Canonical is implemented wrongly, that should be, in the perfect case scenario, that should be caught before, like by SEO specialists, like if code wasn't a good one. If it's about, let's say, slowness of the website, that's something very hard to evaluate for SEO specialists before the go live. Then yeah, there should be done some adjustments from code perspective. So it really depends from case to case. Can you please explain image migration? After the migration, I have a problem with showing featured images in SERP. Regarding images, that's a good topic, because it's something actually we are testing out at the moment as well. We're testing how 301 mapping of images is affecting image performance afterwards. So one thing what theoretically could be done is, like during the migration, is map the images, and Google should pick then new images. But Mario, in your case, I would recommend to take a look on how you're on few things. First, how is your alt text looking? So are they optimized, and have you migrated actually alt text properly? Image naming, maybe that has changed, and maybe before it was optimized, now it's not. And if it's related to products, then take a look on products markup, structured data markup, schema.org, because that's actually where Google picks information about product images. So if that's working well, then worth looking into that. Hard to say without looking into details, though. Okay. I think that's it from questions. Anastasia, do we have any questions from other platforms, or that's it then?
No, all good.
Perfect. Okay, then we have one thing left. Quick one, summary. We'll go quickly through it. That just like some takeaways. Onboard SEO team as early as possible on the migration projects. Better spend more time on detailed requirements and planning than on fixes after. On-page improvements can have a great benefits, but there could be quite time-consuming. 301 mapping is a blocker task for go live. It should be done well before go live. SEO audit can be done in several waves, not necessarily just one big audit before the go live. Check extensions. Maybe they can solve your requirements pretty easily. Yeah, SEO specialists informed about go live in real time. So have this connection built that SEO specialists can check if everything is good right after the go live is possible. And yeah, extra QA won't harm. And yeah, give search engine time before making conclusions. So 2 days after go live, it's not necessarily the final thing that you will see. Yeah, so that's it from my side. And the last thing, what I want to, yeah, oh, sorry, I see one more question about, can I ask about PWA? Is it good to PWA? Thanks. PWA, progressive web apps. Wow, that's really, really good from user experience perspective. And it has actually a lot of benefits when it comes to the ways how you can optimize customer journey. From SEO side, I cannot say that it's good, but it's kind of neutral. So if SEO specialists set up everything correctly, it will act the same way as non-PWA. Will it alone bring benefits from SEO side? No, but if it will make your customer journey better, it might indirectly improve your SEO as well. Yeah, and Anastasia is already posting information about our next free webinar, data tracking, privacy, and you. So it will be about GDPR, if I'm not mistaken. So that's also a very cool topic, recommending. So yeah, definitely can sign up. So thank you for joining. I hope it was useful. If you have any extra questions, you can also reach out to us. And I think Anastasia could also include in follow-up email some contact information. So yeah, thank you and see you in our next free webinars. Thank you and bye.